Hello all, welcome back to Overclock Showcase. We're back to Scout again. It's the second Scout episode of the new series, which means we're doing the M1000. And if you watched to the end of the last episode, which judging by the views you probably didn't, I don't know why there seems to be an anti-driller bias. Alright, let me get out of the music. The driller ones always seem to do the least well, and Tyler actually had a theory about this, and it's that basically driller fans are just so like fucking crazy that they don't care about anything. I mean, look at him. So yeah, on Scout on the M1000, and if you did see the end, you know that we got Hoverclock as the next Overclock to cover. And yeah, Hoverclock is an interesting one, isn't it? It definitely resides in the more interesting side of cleans. In terms of adding an actual unique mechanic to the weapon. And I think you know what it does. Basically, it makes it so that you hover while you're focusing, or rather, you slow. It is actually accurate. Its description is actually very accurate. It does literally just slow you down while in the air. So basically, your fall speed is slowed. It's not literally the same as like you still have you do lose your momentum. It does like cancel out your momentum. It's not like, you know, as soon as you're done, as soon as Hoverclock is done, you will immediately revert back to the same falling speed that you were falling at before. It's not anything like that. At the same time, that's all it is. And I have sort of weird feelings about Hoverclock. The same reason I have those feelings about Special Powder. I don't really know how to feel about an Overclock that just has genuinely nothing going on almost, except an actual unique mechanic that it adds. But it's not a combat focused mechanic. Of course, it is. Especially in Special Powder, it's much easier to see what the benefits are. The ability to make a quick getaway in the way that Special Powder lets you is pretty insane. Overclock doesn't do that. It's kind of hard to actually tell what you're really meant to use it for, personally. Traversal, yeah, kind of. It does actually some applications, especially on something like point extraction, potentially. But it's just kind of strange. So what we're really playing with in this episode is a base M1000. And that's kind of it. I will be hovering. I'll probably be hovering quite a bit. But for me, this was more of an experiment just to find out that I don't hate base M1000, actually. And as always, I've got two different builds to show you. This one and this one. As you can tell, this is actually a cryo-focused build, which is lots of fun. But this is a very sort of standard build that sort of splits the role between the two weapons. Well, the boomstick is kind of weird here in that the boomstick can kind of do anything. So actually, they kind of both have two roles. The M1000's role here is single target damage, but also HVT and trash clearing. So individual grunts and obviously individual sort of high value targets like Tri-Jaws and Acid Spitters, prime targets for RM1000. And that's sort of backed up by pretty much everything about it except tier 1, I would say. Actually, no, tier 1 and 5. Tier 1 is literally just because that's kind of for the trash clear element. So you can sort of justify a focus shot against an individual grunt, like it's not like a waste of ammo at all. Tier 2 does help with all the stuff though. And, you know, focus speed would be nice, but I think arm breaking kind of takes the cake here. I think it is the most popular choice. You'll see it on both of these. Frankly, you'll probably end up seeing it in most N1000 builds, except Hipster, you know, where you would use, you know, recoil, obviously. Tier 3 is focus shot damage because that's also another one that is uniform. Both of the builds use tier 3 focus shot damage, and that's because of something that I kind of wish Hoverclock was doing already, is encouraging use of the focus shot while hovering, while in midair even more. I personally believe Hoverclock should actually have a small damage bonus when you focus while in midair. I genuinely think it should remain a clean with this change as well. It could be balanced. I don't know what you would do. You could make it so like, the damage sort of balances out where you actually do slightly less. Or maybe just like increase the movement penalty while focusing on the ground, or maybe even increase the focus speed while hovering as well, and therefore also decrease it while on the ground. I don't know. You could do some interesting stuff that really encourages actually hovering. But I sort of get a tiny bit of that feeling by using Killer Focus. It's just a reason to use focus shots more than anything, which indirectly translates to probably hovering a bit more as well, because we have to hover by using focus shots. Tier 4 is weak spot bonus. This is a different one between the two. This is just to sort of help with single target and certain HVTs, especially like Trijaws. This lets it one-shot Trijaws, which is actually a very important breakpoint that it doesn't normally hit unless you take extra damage in Tier 1. So I think that weak spot bonus is pretty important. Tier 5 Precision Terror is actually kind of leaning into that as well, and it gives us a little bit of extra crowd control. We don't have much crowd control. We've got pheromone canisters, which are of course very strong crowd control, but only 4 of them, and Steve kind of works too. I've taken a double barrel boomstick for this because double barrel is such a strong sort of dense wave clear weapon, but also strong single target. So those are kind of the roles, by the way. So the M1000 is for like trash and HVT clear and single target. The boomstick is for horde clear and single target. So they both kind of share the single target sort of thing. But the boomstick is going to be used to clear sort of groups of grunts, sort of like ideally sort of 4 or more grunts is kind of the minimum that you want to be using it against. Dense groups of any kind of enemy. Ideally not tiny enemies. Tiny enemies are kind of annoying, but hopefully we have a Steve and obviously Bosco and Pickaxe and that kind of thing. And also we can kind of just hover above them if we want. So there is actually a little bit of that going on. But yeah, looking at the build, it's a basic double barrel build. There's really no reason to build double barrel any other way apart from this. Even tier 5, Fear could be useful, but frankly, I think, you know, there's such a no. I don't even think the fire technically applies to the blast wave, but it feels like it does. So just this is really the only way to build double barrel, which is probably double barrel's biggest problem. Is that it's very one note, but I love its existence so much that I don't really care. So let's just go with it. And yeah, I'm also taking Steve, but that's just standard scout stuff. It doesn't build showcase. This is Overclock showcase. So you don't have to follow suit exactly, but just know the 2 builds are as distinct as I could possibly make them. You know, we are dealing with a clean that really only has one sort of pretty defined effect. It doesn't really have much bearing on the actual upgrades themselves, so I take a lot of liberty to try and come up with 2 pretty distinct builds. And I think I've done an okay job, especially with the main difference being like one of them is a cryo build that definitely puts in play a pretty prominent difference between the 2. Anyway, we're going to be starting with a deep scan, and I think the Hazard 5 Plus modifier to play with today is going to be player vulnerability. This makes me take more damage, and I think trying to play into Hoverclock as a bit of a safety tool is one of the only things that makes sense to do with it. I mean, more enemies just get a bit much. I'm really not at that kind of skill level. I can't use like standard scout builds. A scout build where I'm not using the bolt shock or the drac in one. You don't need both, but as long as you're using one, I can handle pretty much any difficulty. But when I'm not, I kind of want to be a bit trepidatious. That might not be the word at all. Just a little bit cautious, because more enemies does not suit most scout builds. It does if you're using the drac with impact deflection or aggressive venting, or even maybe conductive thermals now, or if you're using the bolt shock with a lot of bolt shock builds. But apart from that, scout is still not necessarily built for dealing with loads of enemies by himself, so I have to be careful what route I go down with solo. And yes, I was attracted to this double XP, but it's also a pretty substantial mission. It should show off hopefully a variety of scenarios, which is kind of one of the best things about Deep Scan. It kind of inherently shows off a variety of scenarios, you know, sort of basic sort of cave crawling gameplay. That's kind of a mixture between Mine Expedition and Egg Hunt. But then also sort of a more intense finale segment with a more structured sort of navigation, I suppose, or movement mechanic involved with it. And yeah, Hoverclock does get a little bit weird with the drill effector, because of course it does suspend you in the air, which can actually result in fall damage, so you actually need to be careful there. But yeah, Core Stone. If I can do it early on, I might be willing to do that. Anyway, already put the controller in my hand. Alright, Trijaw. Okay, gonna turn around. What's it doing? Oh, hi. What the fuck? They'll probably die from radiation, I imagine. Even the grunts do. I thought the radioactive enemies themselves didn't get affected by radiation. Also, yeah, Rad Zone. It's going to be fun with player vulnerability. Okay. What the fuck? Alright, so Hoverclock. My true unbridled thoughts on Hoverclock are, I don't really care for this kind of overclock. It doesn't offend me necessarily, but it's also not like how I would make an overclock. Not that I make overclocks. I mean, actually, we have done. Not in game, of course. But it's kind of just the absence of any kind of direct combat enhancement I can't really get behind. It's why I can't really get behind. It's not even just traversal necessarily. I don't actually hate traversal enhancements inherently, but I do, you know, things that have no direct combat enhancement. And that's why even Nero Lasso is in that camp for me, where it's like I'm not too interested in something that's just a slowdown, and is still making the weapon worse in other ways. Nice. I'm locked in today. Oh, not with that shot. There we go. Okay. Haven't actually done any hovering yet, you might notice, but that's why it's actually not too inappropriate to see this as a bit of a base M1000 video. Also, I like I've gotten quite a few hipfire shots off, hipfire headshots, which feels pretty good. Not normally how I go with the M1000, and it's why I know, by the way, when I get to minimal clips, which is the obviously you know, hipster is hipfire, mark for death is hipfire in the sense that you will, if you want to use the M1000 itself, you will mark an enemy and then hipfire them. That's kind of the way to do it. Mark for death. All right, I need to keep in mind my enhanced vulnerability. I'm really not keeping it in mind. Wow. Okay, this is bad. I mean, really, what I should be doing is stuff like this, you know, to sort of. That's kind of what I should be doing with it, really. Oh my god. Hello. Hi. And it does actually allow for that, which is a depending on the scenario, a jump, and then as long as its armor is broken, though, that's the thing. Obviously, we have armor breaking, which helps with that a lot. But yeah. Anyway, I do need to sort of focus up a little bit. But yeah, you know, hipfire, obviously hipster is hipfire, mark for death is partially hipfire too. But there's also the other clean overclock for the M1000, which is minimal clips. Is that what I think that's what it's called. I think it's just reload speed and a bit of extra magazine size. I know that I want that to be partially hipfire. One of those builds will be hipfire when we get around to the overclock. Who knows when. I do think about some of them though, like super cooling chamber, for example. Obviously, I don't have to. This is not inherently tied to the M1000 itself, but I do think about some of the build showcases I've done are very, very overclock heavy. They're very focused on one overclock sometimes. In fact, quite a lot of them are. And super cooling chamber is one of those, but I will still not be upset to do that video because I actually quite like super cooling chamber. Same goes for active stability system. Impact deflection, it's quite a few actually, really. It's not just scout, of course. But I can't think of any more off the top of my head. Anyway, I think well, actually, we have done a little bit of combat, and aside from my little fuck up, which was really just me not playing aggressively or defensively, I was kind of just playing very passively, so that's really on me. I wish Bosco could mine crystals. So yeah, that was really on me. Just not playing in either way that makes sense with this build. Oh, Mac Terror. Okay, we don't need to cut anything then. Mac Terrors. I did a Mac Terror plague mission with this build yesterday, and it was pretty hellish. I got through it though. Actually, no, did I? I didn't. Failed. That tells you everything you need to know. It tells you something that I'm not like a scout supremacist. I'm not a scout proficient. I'm just not that great scout. So yeah, that probably was not even particularly well placed pheromone. I do like the fact that double barrel can basically one-shot goo bombers. I find that to be quite a delectable feature. That's a fresh goo bomber. Look at that. Okay. Fuck yourself. And I am using Sweet Tooth naturally. Oh, sorry everyone. Yeah, that's kind of the weird thing about the M1000's base damage, is how close it comes to one-shotting certain things. Without, like, assistance, without even a focus shot. It does feel a little bit weird. Like, do I even need to focus shot these Mactera when one shot brings them so close to death? And, well, technically you don't. Also, you can really see the fear being very useful there, I hope. Right, boss code, it's on you. And you know, boss code's a teammate, and most scenarios you would have a teammate, and so I don't think it's that weird. Oh look, my signature accuracy. There we go. Alright, so takeaways there. See, this is the thing about Hoverclock. Most of the takeaways are not going to be Hoverclock focused. You know? They're just standard M1000 observations. We do very well against weak point based enemies. It's not a surprise. There's nothing unusual there. The biggest thing so far for Hoverclock was that Praetorian, where we saw that it can actually be useful to help hit a Praetorian's weak point from in front of it, basically, by jumping and then just using the hover mechanic. Which I think is pretty cool, actually. Because it's not like you can really hover to counter a Mactera, because it kind of just puts you in its line of sight. Really, Hoverclock should be used against ground-based enemies. There was one thing I observed, actually. Yes, okay. So I'm not going to say anything more about it unless we happen to not encounter one. But I want to encounter a Stingtail because I actually noticed something to do with them. And then spreaders are the same. Spreaders. This is definitely a counter for spreaders. Sure. Maybe even not oppressors actually, because oppressors you need to get behind them anyway. It doesn't really matter that you can offer a both attack. Yeah, I definitely want to encounter a Stingtail. Or a spreader, but I would say so far it's clear this mission is not going to bring that. In fact, because we've got a Mactera swarm, that means we will definitely get more Macteras. Luckily, the things I'm talking about aren't build specific, so hopefully we'll encounter Stingtails or spreaders in the next mission. That's fine. Anyway, I think I'm going to actually skip to the next instance of combat, if you'll allow it. Thank you very much. I can hear them crawling through the ground. Through the ground. Think. Yep, there they are. Waves upon waves. Cruel creature. Of course, this is a bit more of a double barrel show now. But in those situations, how can it not be? And I guess pickaxe power attacks as well.
The pod needs to be connected to a resonance crystal to perform it. Need a scan. Connection established.
Okay, actually, we got a Praetorian here. Definitely want to make use of this. Okay, that's weird. Oh. So obviously I can't really, with a radioactive one, you can't really jump over its attack. Okay. Did that hit the weak point? I think it did. Yeah, so this is why I definitely do prefer the other build. Because I don't think it's completely devoid of value, but in general, especially with basic N1000 build, you definitely want to be taking more damage in tier 1. It almost doesn't seem right, because it seems like a bit of a bulldog situation where the damage mod is really not stacking up to the ammo mod in terms of the total damage. And even the damage per shot, it's like, it doesn't seem like it would be that big of a difference. But it's not really about being a massive difference, it's more just about the breakpoints that are sort of changed by taking that, which is considerable. I wanted to do something weird there, but I didn't see stones to fill. Shit. Die. Oh, man. Look at that, though. Look at the force on that. How far it shot that damn fella. Wow. Okay.
Much better.
Oh. Grunts.
Lighting.
We smoking grunts. Hi. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I was literally about to say something about how Hoverclock is also a kind of a counter for barrage infectors because you can just hover over. But when it's in a situation like that, evidently not. Alright, I'm gonna need a resupply, aren't I, to be honest. God, do you know how great it would be if we could take boomstick and the bolt shark at the same time? I wish that's the kind of thing they were willing to experiment with. Oh my god, I'm gonna fail this mission, aren't I? Because I decided to put player vulnerability on. Oh yeah, look at that. Look how close to death I am. Alright, I will not abort this, and I will not fail this. Trust me. I can do this. Okay, now that is actually, I just remembered one of the things that is actually notable about Hoverclock is the way it fucks with enemy aggro. Might not have been too clear there, but your positioning really does... See, actually, that was pretty clear. You saw those grunts right in front of me kind of just started sort of scrambling almost. It's like they didn't know where to go when I started hovering because they don't know where I am, really. So Hoverclock does actually fuck with enemy pathfinding in a way that doubles as a form of crowd control. That is actually something I unfairly forgot, and we need to keep in mind for the rest of this, I think. I love the amount of force it applies to those grunts. It feels like it's happened to guards specifically. So yeah, two takeaways here. Number one, I suck. Number two, I should be focusing more because it actually, especially when I'm on the back foot kind of like that. Obviously, ideally I'd be using my boomstick to... This is my boomstick. I'm using my boomstick to just sort of clear out as many of them as I can, but... And I kind of did, but I was also clearly on the back foot. You know, I could have taken a resupply, but I was running away from them, and Hoverclock can be used as a crowd control tool. Especially when you have the fear effect in tier 5, I can consistently just hover and then try and hit one of them in the face, and that will cause a fear effect. It's not bad crowd control at all. Which is why maybe this would have paired better with firebolts than I thought. But here's the thing, I actually decided very adamantly and deliberately against using firebolts. it would kind of would have been a bit of an automatic pick because I didn't really know what to pair with it. I was like, oh, I'll just use firebolts. That will like sort of cover all ground, really. I was like, but that's kind of boring. You know, it's such a common pick. But then again, double barrel's a pretty common pick as well. So I'm not, you know, getting off that scot-free. But actually, double barrel is a bit more justified for me because what firebolts lacks is, of course, single target damage. Double barrel, which is something also our M1000 does arguably lack as well. Double barrel brings both the things that we need, really. Really, in this build, I should be seeing the M1000 a bit more as like a crowd control tool. Which isn't a horrible way to look at this. And we need sort of crowds to test that on, so I'll see you in a minute. Found the core stone. I'm not going to do it. Now, there's a strong argument for why I should. Hoverclock, for obvious reasons, can be... Oh, fuck, I'm going to do it.
Help me mine this.
Wait, Bosco, stop. I can't do it on this amount of ammo. But the reason I'm going to do it... In fact... No, oh, that one... Can't remember. I was thinking about like completing the mission first, but I could do the deep scans themselves first. But the reason why I kind of do want to actually use it against the core stones because that's definitely where the safety and sort of pathfinding manipulation comes in, because we can kind of just grappling hook upwards and then just hover and keep doing that, and it does kind of function as just safety, you know. And I got pheromones as well to cover myself a little bit. Hi. Alright, it was good that we saw that, because if you don't take the damage, focus shot damage bonus in tier 3, that doesn't actually work. Okay. Alright, Bosco, now you can do it.
Getting supplies.
Right.
These rifts are up to no good.
Time to lock in.
Lighting. Let's go. Horseman incoming.
That's it. That's how we do it. Biblical. Oh, that's not where you put that. It's not where you put... So there you go. There you saw genuine safety being enacted by Overclock. Of course, that was limited to a scenario where we had basically these melee exclusive enemies just swarming around us. Obviously, they could pounce as well. But it's why you could also do it with something like Swarmageddon. You could probably just put a firebolt on the floor, and it would kind of just take it, or a cryobolt even. That would work. And just sort of wait for everything to freeze or die. What swarm is coming? Normal swarm. That's actually good. We've gotten a grunt swarm and a bacteria swarm so far, and then of course core spawn. I think a normal swarm would be good because we need a mixture of grunts and sort of high value targets. So, menace, swarmers. Motherfucker. You son of a bitch. Oh my god. That's one way to do it. Okay. Well, there you go. There's build number 1. I think, obviously, I could have done better. And you could definitely pin a lot of this down, but you could also pin a lot of this down to player vulnerability. I personally won't. I'm just going to say I could have done better, but I think we still saw some aspects of Hoverclock that are worth noting. With sort of pathfinding manipulation that can be used as a form of crowd control, which is basically the same thing as it being a safety function. Kind of just hover above the combat. It also just allows us to, obviously, there are things like Macteras, like Trijaws, and ranged enemies, like other ranged enemies like Menaces, where you don't necessarily want to be staying still to shoot them. But with the 1000, you have to do that anyway. So being able to do that from at least the vantage point of not being on the ground, where other enemies are, is actually quite appreciated. I think it's worth sort of noting as an aspect of it. Okay, I don't really think there's a really better option here than this, to be honest, so I might as well do it. And yes, I actually am going to leave the play vulnerability on. Yeah, I think we still saw some benefits, and it's sort of it's a nice sort of accompaniment to a default M1000. It doesn't feel too bad. Now, build number 2 is the Cryo build. So let's go through it pretty quickly. Tier 1, more damage. Why? Well, I'm pretty sure it doesn't make a difference against grunts, because I think a hip-fire shot will one-shot a frozen grunt with both versions, but pretty much everything else, it's really appreciated, especially bigger enemies like Praetorians and Wardens. That extra damage is really nice, and I don't find myself really running out. Or, I mean, it's kind of a tiny bit imbalanced. You probably use a bit more M1000 ammo than Sukov ammo, but I'm fine with it. Tier 2 is still armor breaking, and I'll explain Tier 5 as well. Stun on armor breaking is because we don't really care too much about weak points, and it kind of makes the M1000 a bit more proficient when they're not frozen anyway. Basically, it means we're not locked into only shooting frozen enemies. Tier 3 is some more damage. No surprise there. We don't need the magazine size that badly. Tier 4, blow through. Not surprising either. Don't care about weak points. Most of the enemies are going to be frozen, which is why we take a freeze secondary. I decided on cryo minelets for 2 reasons. One, I thought it'd be nice. Well, 3 reasons. One, I thought it'd be nice to not just go for the default option, which would be cryo bolts. But I also thought it'd be nice to have the generation pairing, both Gen 2 weapons. But also, it kind of just struck me as making a bit of sense to use cryo minelets, because it's like they're on the ground, and then we kind of just hover. But I don't really. It's very loose logic, but I thought the cryo minelets being on the ground and us floating above the ground, I thought it made it seem like a nice pairing. And it is, actually. I think this is actually a very nice build, and hopefully you'll see that in action in just a moment. And also we've got cryo grenades as well. So yeah, it's kind of just allows us to almost, I guess, stay out of danger while the cryo miners are doing their thing, almost. Like when they're freezing a Praetorian, we kind of just hover out the way or hover above, that kind of thing. I don't think the two go together like super strongly, right? Overclock and just the concept of freezing, they don't inherently go hand in hand. But I've had a good time with this build, so here it is. And who knows, maybe there'll be more cryo ones in the future. There probably will be, like, even active stability system and supercooling chamber could probably end up having cryo builds in those videos as well. Obviously those are longer down the road, but still worth thinking about. I don't know how to just focus on the present. But yeah, something that's kind of interesting actually, like experience or using this for as far as crime miners goes. So this should be a one shot, I'm pretty sure. You mind?
Flares up.
Yeah, web splitters are one shot. But yeah, cryo mines, they kind of benefit from almost basically creating condensed cryo mines. I find actually putting all the mines in one spot is actually a bit more effective than like spreading them out. So you'll probably see me doing that. Although swarmers are probably the one where you don't want to, you do want to spread them out, actually. Motherfucker.
I need support.
So yeah, once again, it's a bit of a, you know, default M1000 plus. But honestly, I see a lot of the M1000's overclocks as that. Like active stability system and minimal clips, I kind of see as that. You know, one of them is just increased focus speed, and that's it. And the other one is just magazine size, and that's kind of a weird way to do it because I don't really see a lot of other cleans like that on other weapons that could easily be seen that way. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it's, I mean, you know, minimal clips. There aren't many cleans that are exactly just reload speed and magazine size. You know, I think does a stubby have one? It might do, but they usually add either ammo or damage instead of both of those things. You know, I don't know. I don't think I'm crazy. Well, I'm crazy, but you crazy? Oh, why do I have a false memory of freezing exploders insta kills them?
I'm out of here. Clever down.
Very satisfying, very nice.
Get to work. I really can't use this for anything. I'll beat your record this time. Just watch me.
Alright, looks like it's time for mission stuff. Alright, I'll see you in a bit. Alright, here they come. A proper swarm. And of course,
Down the hatch.
there's a couple of things going on here that sort of lean into the cryo aspect. If we want to like freeze a Praetorian in the middle of a swarm, we want to focus on it, we can, because we have both blow through and hoverclock. We kind of just jump and just focus in on that Praetorian if we really want to. And it works because of hoverclock, I'd say. So that's kind of just been my experience with it so far. So yeah, this is my preferred of the two builds, in case you were wondering. And there's definitely something to be said about cryo minelets compared to cryo bolts. I've kind of had the opinion, and I still hold to it, I would say for the most part. Also, look at that. See, that's cryo minelets being shit. You know, it's just so unresponsive. And you kind of wish it would freeze those enemies that you didn't quite get right away.
Praetorian down.
Intel. Okay, what am I going to do here? I'm going to fuck up this Praetorian first of all. Okay, I'm actually going to apparently not. I'm going to fail to actually freeze it. I failed to freeze it a lot. Oh my god. Fuck it, Intel's dying now.
Let's be friends. Flares ain't ready.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about the difference between cryo bolts and cryo minelets, and I think cryo bolts win out, I would say, like 80% of the time, to be honest. But minelets, the only thing they have over it is that you can be a bit more granular with minelets. You can be a bit more precise in how many,
So proud.
like how much of your ammo you actually need to use for a given target.
Lights up.
Obviously, and I mean it specifically more so for like smaller enemies, like grunts and swarmers. It's much easier to be less wasteful against those enemies than with crybolts because you can be more accurate to how many enemies there are with how much ammo you use. But crybolts for me still hits wonderful breakpoints, like the 2 bolts to freeze a Praetorian, the 1 bolt to freeze a Warden. I love those breakpoints. They feel really great. So this is definitely interchangeable with cryobolts, I would say.
Light for me, please.
But yeah, I'm kind of sort of devising a sort of a tagline phrase for this overclock, which is like cool but almost pointless. I think that's going to be the title of the video, actually.
Bosco, come here.
It kind of lines up what it is. It is cool, and you get some interesting use out of it sometimes, but its actual use cases number pretty low, but they also do exist.
Oh, I love this
Also, I've never really experienced that in like very pure form. So watch this. There it is. That was so quick. I showed it off immediately. If you missed it, just go back and look. But maybe you registered it, but you don't really know what I'm talking about. By using Hoverclock, even before we actually got grabbed, because you know, if you do this, it already activates a hover, just by the fact that you've used the focus shot tool or used the focus mechanic, and that hover will basically just occur as soon as you leave the ground. And with that mechanic, we can basically interrupt or just not be affected by stingtail attacks. So if you really hate stingtails, Overclock might be the overclock for you.
This should work.
And this is what I mean by almost pointless, because I don't see these things as like really having an edge over like Hipster or Mark for Death or something like that. But I think there's enough where it's not completely pointless. Well, I think if you like Hoverclock, I don't think you're stupid. And even if you think it's good, I don't think you're stupid. I just think there's no like downsides to it either. That's also kind of, it sounds weird because yeah, obviously it's a clean, but that's also kind of gives it a pass. If Hoverclock had a downside, I would call it pretty terrible. Like if it was as it is now, but it also had some kind of downside. I would say that's not an overclock that's worth using. Because it's completely clean, and it's also kind of using it as exposed to me, the base M1000 is actually okay, especially if you build it right. I definitely give Hoverclock a pass. It makes me actually want to not call the video what I was going to call it. You know, I almost don't want to call it almost pointless. I don't know what else I would call it.
I think we actually have a
no, I think almost works. I mean,
framework set.
or maybe not. Maybe less pointless than you think would be a good one.
We need these
That kind of like
base rate.
might drum up some sort of ire from people who already think it's good, but also make people think who has been like sort of just I guess ignoring it basically might give them some pause and like a reason to actually consider using it. Anyways, we've got Swarmer Swarm, so let's see if I can actually engage in some kind of Overclock based shenanigans with it.
Light is up. Damn flares could need an upgrade.
Maybe not, but Crime Miners is definitely working on here.
It's past your expiration date. Bosco, activate construction.
Honestly, with the Crime Miners and Steve, has gone fine, but not a Hoverclock showcase when it comes to swans. I'd say actually Swarmers so far. This is something where I would say Ice Bolts, Cryo Bolts, and Cryo Minets probably kind of matched. Maybe Cryo Minets is even better than Cryo Bolts for this. Maybe. Anyway, unlike last time, we're actually doing the mission. So yeah, let's keep going. Yeah, I do think that the Stingtail thing is actually really cool.
Stand your ground. Skip no quarter.
Wow. Why'd that not freeze anything? Do you mind? Do I have a resupply tool? Don't. Am I stupid? Am I dumb? Yes. Wow. Nice.
Prepare it, Bosco.
Whoa. So it's definitely something to note. A takeaway about this is Hoverclock responds well to singling out an enemy that you want to kill.
Beat your maker free.
That lets you make good use of it, especially if you fly up first. He's jacking in these.
Already hit.
And it's just a little bit of basic Overclock traversal going on there. It can actually potentially usurp the need for hover boots, to be honest, so I should have really kept that in mind and maybe practiced that aspect of things, but it's definitely, I don't need to really to prove it. I think it's definitely obvious you can usurp the need to hover. I mean, maybe you don't even use hover boots, but you can definitely get use out of Overclock, even if you don't need hover boots normally. I don't do things you wouldn't normally do. Obviously, this is different because this is refinery. I can just land in the pipes. I can definitely see scenarios though. So you could have to scout. Oh no, there's the one. If you must know, I was going to say you could have to scout wait at the top of the drill elevator hole and just sort of be like a sniper from upstairs. Possibly even draw the enemies away and then just jump down, but you could do that anyway. You could just grapple onto the floor when he gets there, so you don't really need Hoverclock to do that. Now we're going to see the true momentum stopping power of Overclock.
Lloyd is up. How's that for spinning, you freak?
No, press it.
Steam side honorable. There's our
And I think that Hoverclock is actually not that strong of a momentum stopper as other things. So, okay, it handled it. I didn't know, but we need to. That.
took the sting out of the sting can. Fire grenade! Take that!
Physical from that crime miners. Who told you have to shoot them with a different weapon? I can shoot these crime troopers with cops. And they'll die. And of course we're laying more minelets in the process. And yes, it's a shame they didn't fully finish off Praetorians in 2 shots. But it still gets you closer than it does if you don't take that damage in tier 1.
Getting supplies. I needed that.
So I didn't actually register the drop pod here.
Bitter down! From A to D, skipping B and C.
Right.
Departing in T-minus 2 minutes.
Lighting up!
Oh, that was Hoverclock. A bit of a cryo minet showcase as well, to be honest. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that, because that'll be the end of the video. But yeah, Hoverclock. So it is definitely not pointless. I think it's fair to say. I think there are a lot of aspects of it that are actually really cool. It's got some weird pseudo crowd control elements. It's got some weird sort of like pseudo single target elements of like kind of lets you have more oversight of the battlefield and therefore clear up your line of sight. It's got obviously safety and traversal elements. It is a very clean overclock, but there is some, I would say, hidden potential as well. And that hidden potential would still be bolstered by giving it some kind of damage bonus while hovering. Wow, look at that. But as it stands, I don't think it's like a grossly misplaced overclock. You know, I understand its presence. I think its presence is of, even if it's small, it is of some value. Yeah, that's Overclock. I mean, you can wait until after the outro for me to find what my next Overclock's going to be, but until then, if you enjoyed this, please make sure to like, subscribe. Wait a minute. Yeah, please. And of course, if you want to see more of this kind of video and you want to stay on top of everything to do Deep Rock and Road Core, then click the bell as well. But now is the time that I find out what the next Overclock will be. I'm not even going to bother changing the background image for this. But, of course, being the way it is, next up will be Engineer. And that also means next up will be Stubby. I know that this guy is not going to stay Hyper Alloy Assembly. So, let's find out. So, yes, the two I've done are Hyper Alloy Assembly, which is the actual new Stubby Overclock, and also Microconductor add-on. Being a reworked one, that was kind of the final. That was arguably the first of this new series of Overclock showcases. Anyway, so here's how this works. We have the overclocks from left to right, top to bottom, numbered 1 through whatever the number is. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This means that 1 and 4 are out. So you will, in just a moment, see the wheel. Which, there it is, which shows 2 through 7. Spin it to find out what Overclock's going to be. Now, I've had a weird relationship with, let's see actually. 5. Okay. That's not bad at all. I do not mind doing 5. I know exactly what to do with it as well. That's a good thing. We got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lightweight rounds. An overclock that I know exactly what I'm doing with. In fact, what you're looking at right now is actually what one of the builds is going to be. Except I think with probably with magazine size capacity. In fact, I like this overclock enough where I think I'm going to jump straight into practicing. Look at that. I don't even need to make it look like that. It just does. This guy's the actual guy who's using Go Chip Guardian. Anyway, so yeah, that'll be next. Bye. Oh wait a minute, that's not how we do things, is it? What's a hoverclock? Definitely well held special. Wait, what am I talking about? It's not Wormhole Special. It's Season Moonrider. Am I stupid? Am I dumb? Yeah, if you didn't realise, the video is over.
Season Moonrider for me, and don't skip on the moonshine.
I love this mug. Mug's great.
Bang your head with this. Get in my guts.
Woo! Oh, can I actually get up there? Can. There we go.
Help!
Ah! Maybe I will grab a a wormhole mission.
Lucky. Pour me some wormhole special.
You boys better be better miners than you are dancers.
That's the stuff. Who says dwarves can't fly?
We go. God, this doesn't look right. Oh, I don't want to go back.
I'm never gonna get used to this.
Alright, well, yeah. Like I said, the video's over. Let's keep it under an hour, shall we? See ya.